when the tourists are gone. So,
That would be February.
yeah, no, usually it'll run like December, January, February, like that, and, maybe early part of March. Uh, So the actual piping and all that is another thing, because the line that Dana's talking about is a gravity line for us. It doesn't have any real pressure in it. Their line's pressurized. The way it works, our system works now, is it goes to Powerhouse Tank, which is a little lower than Mountain View apparently, and that's where it all overflows for the most part. There may be some overflow in Mountain View too, but that's a long way from their system. So it's chlorinated already, it's ready to use, it would seem, but we just have to, figure out how we can get it there.
So I have a question on this. In some of the conversations we've had, there's been discussion of the city creating more storage.
Yeah,
So if we
that's
had
another.
more storage, then would we just be able to capture that as the city, or like how would that work?
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the city's plan actually is to use this water. So we're pursuing funding right now for a 3 million gallon tank at Spanish Valley Drive and Spanish Trail Drive. And the idea of one of the uses for that tank is to capture this overflow and then use it, just have it stored. There still might be some overflow, but it's going to be substantially less after the construction of the tank. So this is something that we have to look at.
Okay.
Just in the line.
Overflow?
What's
Ever
that?
metered that overflow?
No.
No.
Well, usually what comes out of the springs,
We can do a subtraction or something like that, but we don't meter that overflow pipe, if that's what, exactly, but it can be computed, I think.
it could be computed.
An estimate, yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
yeah.
Okay.
So, when I looked at this some time ago, very briefly, I kind of gave up on the idea right off the bat because I had the idea that the total volume of spring water was way more than a $3 million tank.
$3 million gallon.
3 million gallon tank would hold. It was only a few days worth of water, but I could be all wrong about this. Maybe I'm thinking about something else. But so Dana, I guess my question for you would be, there'd be two ways to do it. One would be to just pipe it into your pipes, just like you described. Pressure drops, you get the water. But you could also have a tank. Do you have any empty space on your tanks that we could use to fill up?
They're too high. Our tanks are way above yours, so the water would just have to go right into the distribution system.
Right.
So, which would be ideal. And at some point, Murphy Lane goes downhill in some places, there's gotta be some pretty good pressure on that line to get it up to the tank. We could possibly, and I'm so not an engineer, but we could possibly intercept it before it heads up to the tank, or something like that. I'm aware of the new tank you guys are gonna put in across the street from our office. Maybe it's a year in the making, maybe it's two, and if this solution could be done for even a limited amount of time, it might be worth it. Like I said, to me, it's just more investigation. What were you saying?
Okay.
I was gonna say, so apparently we need to know at this point in time, okay, how much overflow is actually is actually being pushed down. How does that relate to the 3 million gallon tank, and whether it's
Right.
the 3 million gallon tank is just a small portion of that?
Right.
Or if it's going to take a large portion of that. And the final thing is that the third thing that we would need is an idea of where we would like to hook it up. I'm going to ask you a question. At one point in time, there was a connection between GWSSA.
It was for us to feed you.
It was for you to feed us?
Yeah.
Is there
So
a way
the
to...
pressure is, that's what I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
Right.
But
Yeah, this is a question for the engineers
Yeah.
and the water, the actual people who turn the valves, like Levi and
Right.
Dana people.
So the third question is what physical infrastructure we would need to do that, and an idea of how much that would cost.
And
Right.
there's a fourth one in my mind, if you're done with, if those are the three.
Go ahead.
Did you have more?
I don't think so.
The fourth one is, what is the mechanism for the city to, who decides? Is it the council? Is it the engineer? Is it Levi? Who decides about selling water to someone else? Because to me, that seems like we need to figure that out too.
Okay, there will be a contract involved, and the city has
Right,
the
but
opportunity,
so it would
without
probably be the
change-
council.
Without any change application, the city has the opportunity to sell water to anybody they want to, basically.
We would be considered a wholesale customer, just
Okay.
like Island in the Sky.
Okay,
That part-
so that could basically be, then if we suddenly didn't have that water, we would just say, sorry, you don't have it. Or if you didn't pay your bill, we would cut you off.
Yeah, so,
But whether or not the city council or whether or not.
Well, no, it sounds like city council's not involved then, so that's, I just wanted to make
but
sure.
they are involved.
Okay.
They will be involved. So here's the issue for me, Dan. I mean, all this is great, but there's a policy. Suppose the city's plans are some years down the road and we go ahead and hook you all up. As soon as we start supplying you water, we can write into a contract all you want. And unless it was really ugly, I mean, saying we can cut you off anytime we want and don't complain, okay? Because if it's the city's goals are to increase their own supply of culinary water, then like you said, Eric, somewhere down the road, our residents are likely to say, oh, I hear you guys have all this spring, winter overflow that you're giving away. Why can't we get it back? And there might be a political motivation to do that, us rather than them. See what I'm saying?
I think, I think what Mike's getting at, which is kind of what was striking me as a fourth item, other than the nuts and bolts of how much water, how do you do it, what needs to be done physically, is how would you structure that sale such that for both agencies in the end, it works? Because to me, it's wading into politics in a big way.
So that water companies throughout the state sell water to other.
Right, I get that.
So it's not a big, it's not like we're treading on new ground here.
No, but it's something that to my knowledge, and I could be very wrong, we haven't had a whole lot of happen here. So I feel like I'd rather ask the question up front than go down a road of
Oh, I do too.
figuring all this stuff out, and then all of a sudden someone's like, no, we don't want to do this because
In fact,
my aunt says.
You and I were at a conference up in Salt Lake where one of the legislators brought up, what was her name, Kim Coleman, introduced legislation. She was trying to protect people who were having municipalities sell water outside their boundaries to people, only to find it was being taken away from them. And she was trying to protect them,
We have no
remember?
other alternate source, though. We're just gonna be selling to a wholesaler.
So,
But here,
Seems like these details could be figured out by the contract.
And that was the piece where I wasn't trying to have us hash it all out right now. I was
Sure,
just
yep.
raising a fourth item that would need to be talked about because I had a funny
Yeah.
feeling it wouldn't be. It's just like I'm not an engineer. That's a side of things that just needs to be investigated. Is all I wanted to point out.
Cara, are you saying that this is something on a much lower level than you guys are talking about? If we provide water to the GWSSA and we set a precedent and they become dependent on it, then like Kyle says, or excuse me, Mike says,
then later on,
what if we
decide-
decided we want to do it? I mean, it would be, I don't want to get in a tussle with,
I mean, that's not the idea.
Yeah, I think it'd be fine. I just wanted to get it like
Yeah, I
out
mean,
front.
The purpose is to not run the pumps in the winter.
Right.
You
yeah.
guys are pouring the water into the creek.
That's a great idea. I just didn't want to
But
disappoint them if we,
I'm sure that a contract that just says, we have extra water, and when we don't have extra water, you don't get any.
Right.
Right.
And, we're not dependent on it, we're not asking for anything, we're just trying to help our aquifer by using water that would normally just go down the stream.
And I have no issue with it. I just wanted to raise that because I think that's potentially confusing. So.
I can totally
Yeah.
see that. I think, I've talked to a couple of my board members about it, and, they're like, all right, whatever, but
Yeah.
at this point, it's just, to us, it's more a financial issue of, all right, well, we'll use that extra water if because in other words, we're being helpful.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel. It's like, okay, if they've got extra, we'll take it and buy it from them, supply the city with revenue, and then when it's gone, we turn the pumps on.
Right.
Maybe there can be a month stipulation in there that says from this time to this time, or if there ain't no water.
Right.
Because there's, you know,
Okay, so Dana, the way you explained it, then you wouldn't have any heartburn if 5 or 10 years down the road and you've been using this nifty little thing and reducing the amount of pumping that you've been doing, new people move into your area and you supply them, everybody's happy, and all of a sudden one day the city says, hey, you know, we could drill a new well, or we could build a new tank and we won't have to drill that well, and you can save us a lot of money if we cut you off. Would you have any heartburn on
absolutely
doing
not.
that?
And the tank thing is actually happening faster than that. And so I would imagine this agreement would be maybe 2 years at the most, maybe 3. And
I
that's where the
think-
financial part
Oh,
comes
okay.
in.
And we don't need to hash this all out right this
No,
minute.
I get
think
it,
having-
but what I'm saying is
Yeah.
that this is something that we're offering for the best, for the watershed, not for us. We have enough water for right now, we're fine, and I don't think dependency is anything, we want nothing to do with that.
But you'll save energy, that's a great thing too, and it'll be our first thing of working together and have this groundwater management plan more of a cooperative
Yep.
approach than everybody lawyer up.
Okay.
How many city customers do you have in your district?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. That's the other thing that needs to be, we all need to remember at
Yeah.
this point in time, WSSA does service a fair number of
City company.
Yes.
city residents.
And you just,
With the city's annexation plan, it'll be all of them eventually. So, I mean, you know, like I said, this wasn't motivated by us not having enough water by any stretch of the imagination. It was
well, don't get me wrong, I think this would be great for all the reasons you guys have talked about, okay? And furthermore, we just approved another subdivision last night for another 23 homes, you know, and they were all getting their water from the county as well. So you're right, we're sucking them dry. So,
But still, we want to pay for it. It's not like we're gonna give it, you know what I mean? Just, we don't want to pay your culinary prices when we could pump it for $50 an acre foot, you know what I mean? It doesn't,
But I think you use the term, it's obviously win-win for everybody, so let's.
Yep.
So,
Hang on a minute, you're not the chair. Eric was asking a question.
so this is a staff issue, basically, you know, it's something to be worked
Right.
between our staff and their staff. There'll be some kind of contract or a memorandum of understanding
Great.
to formalize all this. At this point, we, you know, have our water master plan. We've been talking to GWSSA, and we're, you know, looking at different ways that we can, you know, assist each other and, you know, in emergencies and so on. So this can fit into that, basically. I think this, I don't know what the board's powers or abilities are, but it's, if there was a resolution advising the city to, you know, pursue this, I think that would be, you know, something that would, that Joel would look into and Chuck.
So is there any questions or comments from this body or a motion to that effect, recommending that the city do that?
Do we need a resolution?
It says possible action item, and Eric just asked, and so I'm asking.
So you're saying that you need that resolution or a go-ahead to be able to figure out how much water is actually there and how much it's gonna cost. So those are two things that staff can work out, I think.
Right.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not a big deal.
Yeah, but we take
You know,
orders.
how much it would cost to
We take orders from Joel, you know, it's like, yes, what you're talking about needs to be done, but you telling me is not gonna get it done, because this is a lot of work.
So you need us to have an action item that requests that Joel consider doing this?
Yes, yeah,
That
I
is
mean,
what I was getting at.
if it's just getting you a number or something like that, that's one thing, but getting the number is, you know, money costs and so on.
Wordsmithing a resolution at this point in time.
And it could just be a letter or a memo, rather than a resolution, which is more informal and doesn't have to go to council and get on the agenda and blah, blah, blah. So a letter, a recommendation.
to collect information.
Okay, so, but what it would basically do is outline the four 4 things that we talked about needing to be done, just making sure.
Feasibility study.
Feasibility, basically.
Yeah, so positive thought here, guys. So when I did my well drawdown study, I already got from DEQ all the monthly readings over the last Humpty Dumpty years for all the springs, broken out by 1, 2, 3 and Skakel. In other words, I can go home this afternoon and add up the numbers that we're talking about and get you a first crack anyway, and how much water we're talking about. It won't cost you anything, such a deal.
So,
Does somebody have a motion?
does someone have a
Arnie?
motion?
Do we need to, Rosemary, you suggested.
If we're gonna have a recommendation that you draft, we need a motion giving you that blessing. Or that direction.
At the next meeting, or?
Or it could be, we've done a few where we've then passed it around. I mean, I don't know how urgent this is. If waiting till our next meeting is fine, then, okay, so if maybe it's just that
I mean,
we
it is the
haven't,
middle of summer.
right.
Well, it still feels like it anyways, but, I mean, like I said, this isn't a sense of urgency on our part needing
Okay.
water. We're just trying to
Do
do
you
something
feel it's a
helpful.
sense of urgency, Arnie, or can we have this as an agenda item on the next meeting?
We will, except we've got an agenda item on this meeting, why don't we just move on?
Well, but it would,
The actual resolution on the meeting, if you would like to do that.
or the recommendation.
Recommendation, yes.
That's what I'm asking, is, so maybe that's what we do instead of an action item right now, is we have on the next agenda that we review whatever you come up with and then act on that at the next meeting.
Fine.
Does that work
That's
for
fine.
people?
Sure.
Or does anyone prefer to do it a different way?
Well, I think Levi needs to be involved. I mean, it's
Yes.
not that we come up with our own number.
Of course. Well, no, we won't come up with any numbers by the next meeting. It would be more of the recommendation
Uh-huh.
to the city
Oh,
Have
sure.
Joel-
manager to have Joel
Yeah,
tell
oh,
you,
yeah.
yeah. And maybe it makes sense to make sure we invite Levi to the next meeting to discuss this as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we're just making a recommendation that they look into it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
That, and.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that, I'm still not sure we need to wait till the next
Do we
meeting.
need a letter, or can we just make that recommendation then? Because I'm hearing a lot of different things.
You can make a recommendation and he'll read the notes.
And who we notes?
Yeah.
That'd be Joel?
Yeah.
So at this point in time, I would make a motion that we recommend the city, get together, but engage GWSSA in the possible use of winter overflow springs by the GWSSA system for money? How do you say that? Okay.
Purchasing it,
Yeah.
purchasing winter overflow to add into their culinary supply.
One more time, I would recommend that the city of Moab engage GWSSA in talks to facilitate winter overflow sales to GWSSA. Moab City winter overflow sales to GWSSA.
Let's collect the information first for.
To engage them.
Yeah,
That's
it'd be
what
the discussion would involve all of that.
Yeah, the discussion would involve all of that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. To anyone? Do we have
I'll
a second?
second.
We have a second?
I'll second.
We have 3 seconds. Any further discussion? Yes. He was first.
First, second.
Second, third.
So I got a time from Chuck for the meeting.
Okay, hang on, let's finish
Okay, let
this,
us
this
know.
vote. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None seen, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Yes.
I'll get back to Eric with a number.
September 19th at 1:30.
At Chuck's office, or where is it gonna be?
Probably down here, but it'll either be up at Chuck's or
Is that
here.
a Friday? What is that,
It's
a
gonna be a
Friday?
public meeting, so.
It's a
Yeah.
Public
Thursday.
meeting?
It's a Thursday,
It's a Thursday. So the 19th,
don't leave yet.
Well, do you have
At-
the capability of call-in up there? Can we do a
Yes.
meeting
so it's in Chuck's office?
Yes,
so we can listen in?
yeah.
Okay.
Is it, Arnie, are you going to be here on the 19th?
I am not.
Rats, oh, well, it would be,
19th at 1:30.
At this point in time, I'm scheduling microbial source tracking sampling and delivery to the state of Utah on that date, and on the 20th, I fly away out of Salt Lake, so
Okay, I don't know the technology, but if it's possible to have you at that meeting in some way, shape, or form, I think it'd be really good.
I want to attend, yes. Hopefully I can be in Salt Lake City by the time this meeting starts and get on the phone.
Fun, okay.
Yeah, because that was the time that we had talked about at the last meeting, that Chuck was gonna try to set this up, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
so it was also gonna potentially be followed by a action, but since we're noticing the meeting, it doesn't. Okay,
1:30 the 19th, that's what you said.
Yeah.
in that corner, oh, right over there.
You'll have a call-in number.
Okay, that sounds great.
What's that, Chicago?
You'll have a call-in number for us?
Yeah, it'll just be Chuck's number, or city number.
Okay.
Can't tell exactly where that it's like the last time we met in Chuck's office. There was only like 6 of us.
I'll send it out to everybody. I'll get Chuck's number.
Okay,
Okay, Rosemarie will handle the coordinating.
okay, so we had rearranged the agenda to have item 4.4 be the next item in order to accommodate Dana's time, but we also have John leaving in about a half an hour on 4, and he was particularly interested in 4.8. Do you mind if we jump to 4.8 and then go back? Sorry.
I do.
Okay, so we're gonna go to item 4.8, final USGS report and its findings. And is this what you provided on this topic?
I provided this on the conservation goals that we have moved to for.
Oh,
I
Okay,
provided
so-
it's the second to third last, this one page, 13 point.
I don't know if I have that.
Summary of important points, it's in the very back there.
I don't have it.
It's in the back of the recaps.
Very back. Second to last.
Aha, got it. I got it. Thank you. It just wasn't in order. Okay. Go for it, Arnie and John.
Actually, go to.
No, absolutely not, no.
Okay. He says no.
The discussion is that the USGS report is finalized, and at some point in time, the city council, I believe, will want to know what the important notes, what take-home message is, because I don't think they're gonna read the 64-page document and take anything out of it. So what I have done, and when we started doing this at one point in time with the draft, is that we put a summary together, the important points from that document. I went through the 8-page document, I pulled out a bunch of important points for me, because there's a fair amount of information for the water work that I do on a regular basis that I need to know. And there's some great information in there on the geology and where some of this water is coming from in pathways, but it's beyond the scope of what the city council needs to know in front of them at this point in time in terms of what the results of the study were and what they can take home and make policy decisions with. So I put what I thought were 13 points that I went through my points and then went through them again that I thought, I do have one comment on this. We can talk about that later, but I'm wondering if you guys want to read them for a second. And if we don't have to give them, we don't have to submit these at this point in time. And if you would like to add to them and go through the document, that would be great also. But these are my 13, and we need to start a discussion on what points we're going to send to them, what kind of summary we're going to send to them.
Is there, we can either all sit here and read for a few minutes, or do you have certain ones you think are the most important, or anything you want to say about
I
this?
actually think point number 13 should be actually point number 3, and the rest of it should just move down one.
Okay,
That would basically say that the study says that this year there was 1,300 to 1,500 acre feet. That's point number 2. They've importantly no attempt to determine how much water we actually withdraw from the aquifers, how we could actually withdraw without the deleterious effects. It does not tell us that.
so basically, that means it doesn't really give us a water budget.
It doesn't give us a water budget, okay? And if you wanted to wordsmith this, then we can wordsmith this also. The report made no attempt to determine how much groundwater was depleted by natural means or anthropogenic dispersions, except with those two items there, and I included in there for a detailed look at current groundwater usage estimates. You should see the Conservation Board's fact sheet.
And you're talking about this when you say that?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I dove into some of the more particulars that I do believe they do need to know, and that is that the groundwater pathways there's at least two, and they have lumped 3 of them into one, and then they have kept the second Glen Canyon group out as a significantly different aquifer from the rest of them. I did note in here that the report made no states, the report made no attempt to decipher the amount in each of water in each of these pathways. But I did make 2 very, very pointed statements here. And one is that the report states that the Glen Canyon group is recharged from higher altitudes in the LaSalle Mountains than any of the water in the Valley Fill, Mill, or Pat Creek pathways. And I made a note in here that please note this is a significant departure and directly contradicts the Cancom model for recharge of our groundwater aquifer, because it does. Okay. I've also made a note in that, and a little bit later on in the other one.
Well, I've got a question about that. It's recharging at a higher altitude, but the recharge is actually hitting a barrier and channeling it into the Mill Creek Aquifer, right?
Nope. That's Cancom, that's Cancom's model, but that's
You're-
not what the USGS is saying.
USGS is stating that it's all coming through the, any barriers and
Yes.
going down?
Yes, the Glen Canyon aquifer is not coming to the surface, other than at the springs, it's not interacting. I'll read the next part, the number 7. The report states that the Valley Fill, Mill, and Pat Creek pathway is underwater, contains water from lower altitudes. There is probably some recharge to that pathway from the Glen Canyon group aquifer. However, at this time, there is no evidence that the Valley Fill, Mill, and Pat Creek pathways recharge the Glen Canyon group. And that's a pointed statement in that report.
And so what this is also saying then is that basically the Glen Canyon aquifer is pretty well separate from Mill Creek.
Yeah,
Completely separate.
Okay.
Completely
but Arnie,
separate.
Colm didn't say
That,
that.
we're not talking about Colm, we're talking about the USGS report.
Okay, well, this is all contradictory to the Colm model. Colm did not say that.
No, Combs says that Combs says that the Glen Canyon aquifer is being filled below the Dakota sandstone.
Right.
And this is.
It's a very different
it's
model.
very
Yeah,
different.
but he still took the whole Pat Creek watershed out of the picture altogether.
Southern Pat Creek, Mill Creek itself, the water in Mill Creek is isotopically different. And none of that water that's in Mill Creek at this point in time between the Shealy diversion is recharging the Glen Canyon aquifer.
Okay.
I've been trying for 2 months to figure out, and they do say that the water comes from above 9,000 feet, and they've got that nifty graph with the red triangles and the blue triangles don't overlap and so forth and so on.
They make the point several times that the Glen Canyon aquifer is separate. Mill
Okay.
Creek water, at some point in time when it gets down lower, but basically way above 7,000 feet,
Okay.
is completely separate from the Glen Canyon aquifer.
And they call that mountain flow, right?
I'm not sure I don't remember.
It's water, but what they're saying, the water seeps through the stuff
They
and
actually
directly
stated
into
that outcrops of the Glen Canyon group were probably where it is, the outcrops of the Glen Canyon group and underlying outcrops of the Glen Canyon group in the LaSalle Mountains is probably where it's getting its recharge from.
Okay.
That is said in there.
Excellent.
So,
Arnie, could you, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
If I may.
Go ahead.
So Arnie, could you, I've been through a similar sort of thought process myself, and could you make this a shared document and we can all comment on it?
I sure can.
If
Would
you
like
do,
me to also put down page numbers associated with
that'd be
each
great, if you could,
project?
yeah.
Because I have all that.
And what I was gonna ask, which this ties into perfectly, thank you, Mike, is if that's something that is feasible to do before the meeting with Ken? Because it strikes me that, especially if you cannot be there, this is extremely important.
So in terms of sharing documents at this point in time, you have a shared document, I will send Joey a revised document.
Okay.
Okay, and the page numbers, the only thing that's gonna be really different at this point in time is I'm gonna move 13 up to
Right.
number 2, and I'm gonna put the page numbers that I'm getting this information from on the document
Okay.
itself.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
That's fine.
And then we'll talk more about it, and if anybody has any other comments, there's some other nice things in here that I would like mentioning at this point in time. And one is that there is seems to be a groundwater hydrological divide between Grandstaff Canyon and all the Spanish Valley pathways.
Right.
Okay, and that divide is somewhere similar to where the surface water hydrological divide is. The other thing is, and this, I want to mention this board, is that there's also a divide between the Cane Springs Canyon, a hydrological divide, groundwater divide between the Cane Springs drainage and all of the Spanish Valley drainage also. And that divide, although it's not, it will be somewhere near the surface divide also, surface water divide also. Where that implication comes in is that I need to at least let this board know that it appears San Juan Spanish Valley Special Service Districts has
Put a well in.
put a well in on the other side of Cane Springs, which is relatively good news as far as I'm concerned. They're looking at a different source of water at this point in time for their developments than the Glen Canyon aquifer.
So they're looking for that to feed Upper Spanish Valley as opposed to what they drilled already by Chapman, or I mean by East Coronado.
Yeah, yes.
So Arnie, then, even if later on San Juan County's Special Service District filed for changes in points of diversion of their existing 24 wells, we would argue against it if it transfers water from one basin into another. Then, in other words, if you can show courtesy of this report that where wells originally were and what the state ruled on were in another watershed, in another basin, basically another aquifer, and now they want to move them into.
They already moved it from the San Juan River to up here. I don't think you're going to get much traction with that argument.
Well, we will, yeah, because there's basically, they thought it was all one aquifer up here.
No, they moved it from the San Juan River. That's where this water right originally came from, and they moved it up here. So I don't think
Oh,
you're
I
going to
understand.
get a lot of, but I don't know that that's what this is about so
No,
much.
that's not what this is about at all.
I'm not
I was
looking
just
at that.
stating that I digressed a little bit.
Yeah.
Just so we know that new well of theirs should not impact
Right.
the city of Moab or GWSSA or anybody that actually lives in.
Oh, the original well you're talking
The
about?
new well.
The new one in the Cane Springs, not the one,
Oh, the
not
new
the,
one in-
not,
oh, in Cane
not the one
Springs.
that's
Yes.
up by East Coronado. That's a different, the one by East Coronado is square in the middle of our area. They did another one.
Did they really?
They did, yeah. Okay, so
Okay.
anyways, there's some other minor things in there that I felt that were interesting and at least important to the further down the road. But I'm gonna, at this point in time, with your guys' blessing, I'll send this to Joey and she can move it on to the rest of you guys. And it would be nice if, I think by the next meeting, we had come to an agreement on some sort of summary for the city council. And I'll just leave it at that. Does that sound reasonable?
So are there questions or comments or things you guys all want to talk about in relation to this?
So just your first line, Arnie, that there are numerous items, blah, 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 water conservation and drought management board, not mitigation.
Yeah, it's Drought Management Advisory Board.
Okay, we can wordsmith the heck
Yeah,
out of this.
well, no, but that's the title of the board, so we should get the title of the board right.
Maybe, well, once it's,
Advisory board?
Drought Management Advisory Board.
That's what it says right here on these. the
Yep,
agenda.
right at the top of the agenda, every time.
Advisory board. Okay, I can make that change. Any other changes that you'd like to
Yeah,
make at
so-
this point in time?
So if I may, Carl?
Yeah.
So Arnie, first thing that hit me was item number 1. The report states that during the 3-year study, total annual groundwater resources varied from 13 to 15,000 acre foot per year, if you
Per
like.
year, yeah.
All right.
Acre
What
foot
they-
per year. okay?
Yeah, what the revised
Well, I
report,
said the annual groundwater resource.
that's not what I'm complaining about.
Chuck keeps doing that on this though, so we should
fact
just
sheet,
get
yeah.
consistent.
No, the way I took the report, they got a nifty little table in there. They've actually got two independent estimates of what the groundwater resources are. One is derived from recharge models, one is derived from withdrawal models. The recharge model has a wider error band on it because there's so much more uncertainty there, and that one varies from 9.5 to, I don't know, 13, something like
It
it.
was 23.4.
Okay, whatever the number is. The point is, let's say 9 to 13, whatever the number is. Right underneath that line, there's a second estimate of groundwater resources, if you will, that's derived from withdrawals, and that one runs over a narrower range inside. You know, if this is the error band on the upper one, if this is 0 and here's 10 and 13, here's our two markers out here. The estimates derived from withdrawals, which is better known, sits inside those boundaries. So there's two independent estimates, so the real answer is somewhere in there.
Okay, so the document itself states that they don't, in the document itself, it doesn't say this verbatim, but it says that they don't trust their estimates of recharge, and they feel those estimates of recharge, the estimates of discharge is a much better number. So that's what I've included in here. And if you read the abstract on the very front page, they do not include their estimates of recharge. I don't think they do in the abstract at all.
They have a very weaselly worded thing. They say that recharge, no,
So that's why
discharge
I
is,
have not- that's why I have not included, anyways, go ahead.
So these are
discharge is more, wait a minute, guys. Discharge is more robust than recharge. And then toward the end of the paper, they say that's because we can't figure out recharge at all. I mean, they really do say that.
That is why I have kept recharge out of
Yeah,
that.
that's what makes it more robust, yeah.
Okay.
In the abstract, I am correct that they do not put recharge in the abstract as an estimate of the groundwater resources.
Right. The money that was spent on the study was mostly to measure the discharge. So they drilled all these wells, and measured the brine layer and all that, with the purpose of as accurately as possible, determining the discharge.
Okay.
So the recharge, like Arnie's saying, was not something that, or you said also, Denver, not something that they felt they could determine accurately.
Right. Well, they were using that basin characteristic model, and Melissa Masbrook, the first author, shot it down in another paper about how unreliable it was. So I thought it was interesting.
So,
It's like what Arnie said, yeah.
any other questions on
Yeah, are there other questions for?
No, you go ahead.
I think it's important, you know, in regard to these questions that can be answered between Ken Colm and Arnie and other, you know, experts, let's say, that we make an effort to clarify those things before sending something to the council that could very well just confuse them. I mean, what Arnie's talking about is important, of course, but it is somewhat esoteric. And so how much is the council going to value?
So you're saying this is esoteric, or what?
Now, one point about where it originates, you know. and
Right.
Whether there's transfer of water through the ground, through the subsurface to go from one.
I think that's actually kind of important. I think that's a little more than esoteric.
Well, okay, just a word. But it isn't something that most people are gonna know about, you know, without some explanation. So I'm not saying to omit them by any means, but I'm saying that we need to have clear
Right.
answers, that's all.
So
I think somebody's going to have to explain this to the city council. They're going to say, here's what the USGS says, here's what Ken Combs thinks, and here's what the engineer and we think.
And I know you've got
Ken's
a.
gonna have to explain it
I'll
too.
get to
No, it's fine.
So it strikes me that, and I understand why you wanted to have this discussion today, especially if you can't be at the meeting. So I've got a request with this, on the 19th, with this, sending this as a shared document, would you have time before the 19th to, and I'd be happy to sit down and chat with you about it if it's easier, or to just draft a couple of your key, I mean, I kind of think I see what your key concerns are, where the two don't jive, but is that something we can make sure we have? How would we deal with that if you can't make that meeting, is my concern.
I think it's stated fairly, okay. I'd be glad to sit down and talk with anybody.
Yeah.
If you got some time. I
Yeah.
always have time for these important things. I will find time for these important things. In terms of the clarity of this, in terms of for the city council.
No, I'm talking about for talking with Ken.
At a later
Right.
day. For the Ken Cole meeting, I will be happy to discuss it further with you guys and bring out bring the page numbers to you and so on and so
Right.
forth at any point in time. And whatever you want me to do. Okay?
Okay. If you can't be at the meeting is on the 19th is my concern in making sure that we're getting, do people feel comfortable with this as a basis for having that discussion? Okay, good. You've been itching to say something.
Not even a question, just a summary in a sense. So Arnie, you're going to go through and revise this very lightly with pages and things of that nature, and then it's going to come out to the group. It'll be used in the Ken Call meeting, but between now and the next meeting, the idea is that we have essentially a homework assignment to add anything we'd like to add, contest anything that you may have in here, and then discuss and take action on it next meeting. Just wanted to clarify that
I
piece.
think that would be a good time frame
Yes.
to
Yeah.
return
Yes.
something to the city council
Mhm.
on one page,
Right.
if possible.
Yeah.
Right.
One-page summary of that report that they can use for policy
Yes.
decisions. And it gives them
Yep.
enough knowledge that they can use that to make, first of all, sound statements, and second of all, make policy decisions.
Great.
Okay. And it seems like that also answers Eric's concern of not doing this too quickly, but doing it
Yes.
with time.
Yeah. So may I request, Arnie and Joy, if you could get your shared document out there as soon as you can, that would be great. Because what I'll do is I'll comment on it, and then you and I and Denver, or whoever wants to participate, should get together and talk
That's fine.
privately and thrash it out.
Except we can't do it with more than 3 of us or 4 of us at a time. We've got to be careful with,
It would be you, me, and Denver, Mike.
okay, the rest of us are excluded, we can't talk about it.
We'll have our own meeting.
You'll say something
Well,
completely
there's some technical things. I think these guys want to talk about some of the technical things with me. And-
No, I want to, this is technical stuff, and I got a real problem with some of your statements in here, I can tell you already.
Okay.
But we'll find out. I'm sure you can defend it, and that's great, that's what it's all about.
Okay. Is there more on this topic that you guys want to talk about before we resume our modified schedule? Or can we move on? People good with moving on? Okay, we're going to now go to item 4.4. Based on our rearranging of the agenda today, the State of Utah Department of Natural Resource, Division of Water Resources, Local Conservation Goal Program, discussion and possible action. I don't know what this is.
I brought this to our attention, and I noticed that there was a comment period on this that is only 1 month long, and it directly affects the city's water conservation goals as well as GWSSA's. And the state has proposed, and I believe it was a 16, 18-page document. There's some, actually, because I read the thing, and there were some good ideas in there for water conservation that I believe we can talk about at a later date. But if we wanted to talk about their new regional and municipal goals that are regional, if we wanted to comment on it at all, we would need to comment at this meeting because we only have 1 month.
And that's what this is about?
That's what this is about.
What's this?
So there are new goals, they make regional goals, and there's a table there, and then there's also a map, you can see what region we're in the upper Colorado River. And they're going to say that at this point in time, they believe their 2015 baseline for us is 330 gallons per person per capita day. And they're gonna ask us to get down to 267 gallon per capita day by 2030. And just as a mental note, they're saying that, I thought we were already down by 18%. We've already knocked our numbers down from their original goals back in 1997 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
by 18%. And they've noticed that almost the entire state has also conserved water down to 18%. If we conserve another 20%, we're actually 33% below what we would per capita day
Yeah, isn't that something you had put together, Rosemary?
Yeah, I had put it together. I don't remember off the top of my head where we're at.
Wait, I have this piece of paper, I think, from last time. Per capita residents, 281 in 2001 and 133 for residential in 2018.
Yeah, I think that sounds about
That's
right.
what I have from,
So that's just residential use?
and then we've got,
Taking the residents and that's not the entire.
that doesn't have the entire.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, first of all, do we, my question to Dana is, and to everybody else, first of all, do you like the regional idea? I do like the regional idea.
I like the regional idea.
I have the regional idea because where we live is much different than Salt Lake City, okay? And what we do is different than Salt Lake City, okay? And you can see they've made different regional goals. Some of them are pretty big. They're gonna ask Salt Lake City to use 100 gallons per capita day less than we are, and that's reasonable. One statewide goal would be, I wrote it in there somewhere, would be ridiculous. An unreasonable metric is what I said. But the question is, do we think my first question to you is, do we believe we can get to 267 gallon per person day? Is that reasonable for our area? Dana, do you?
You want me to come up there?
Yeah. I'm looking at you and some of our water, I wish our public works director was here at this point. I'm not sure that should probably be the one that would be more commenting on this than we are if we're going to actually try to attain this goal. What kind of goals do you have at this point in time? We have goals that we've talked about, 20-25%, things like that.
Our conservation plan calls for 215. That is not residential use. That is the way that the state does it, which is the amount of water used divided by your capita.
By everybody.
Yes,
By everybody, yes.
because that's the way they do it. So it includes all industrial, it includes all commercial, everything. Right now, we're at about 240, and like I said, our goal is 215 for our customers.
So you're under that benchmark
Yes.
at this point in time. You don't have as many people.
Do you
No,
have
we
it
don't
as a,
have much
do you have it as a
267
total as well as
Yeah.
opposed to?
Yeah, we have it as a total too.
Visitation is,
Do you vaguely remember where it might be? No.
community is visitation.
Well, but I
Yeah.
think Rosemary said earlier in the meeting, it's 16% of your water use.
It is.
So,
The hotels
Hotels.
themselves are 16% of our water use.
Yeah,
Hotels and rental properties.
right.
Correct.
and 10% of our properties are rental properties.
Okay.
So, roughly. But I think the main thing for the city to make that number look higher are restaurants. I think that restaurants use a lot of water, but I also think that a lot of people in the city of Moab have old landscaping that is grass and turf
And they water it every single day.
Yeah, resident use was 51%.
I'm just saying.
I'm just
that
saying. I walk by a lot of it and it's, yeah.
Just for reference, how much do these cities that are in extremis go down to? Like if you're in Phoenix, do you get 100 gallons per person per day? Or what's a really tight?
Tucson probably has the tightest, yeah.
I don't know that.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
They charge you $15 for 1,000 gallons of water and you tighten that real quick.
Yeah.
But
That's exactly how it works.
Yeah.
But they also had an amazing program where they did give homeowners money to redo all their lawns and the hotels.
The question then becomes, do we think, are we going to comment on the actual goal itself, or do we think we can make that? We think it's a reasonable goal.
I think it's a reasonable goal.
I think it's a reasonable goal, okay, and right now, I don't know the exact number that we're using right now, but I do have I did actually put a letter together, a comment letter together, if we're talking about it.
That's this.
That's that, yes. So my first question was, do we believe 267 gallons per person a day is reasonable in this area?
No. If you do away with all the trees and all the vegetation and just have people here, maybe.
I don't think you have to get rid of all the trees and vegetation to drop it, because I don't remember what we are at in the city, but if out in the GWSSA area, we're already down at 240.
And again,
They don't
it
have any
is,
trees out there.
Yeah, they do. They have a lot of trees out there.
well, I think that there's,
The kick is gonna be the commercial.
It is.
and I mean, think about it, there's places, what do you think places like North Salt Lake's water use looks
Right.
like per capita with the refineries there?
Yeah.
I mean, there's places that use crazy amounts of water. What about Hill Air Force Base? What do you think they do?
The data collection center.
Right, the data collection center in the South Park there by Provo or wherever that, or by the point of the mountain, right? You know, everybody's got large users, and that's why, you know, not everybody, I mean, you go to Sharon and it's probably not happening, but a lot of people probably have wells there, so.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying, though, is that their idea of dividing the commercial by the residents, same thing, Park City's in the same boat, you know, but when you go to a big city like Salt Lake, they have so many people that dividing that out.
Right.
Like, look at their water reclamation facilities, their wastewater plants. I mean, do they have to add water to those in the way that Moab City does right now? In some ways, so.
We're not using too much in our water reclamation anymore.
Not anymore.
Well, and so this raises for me a thing, with all of the information we have on this, we don't have this
Our
figure
average, okay.
on it. And it seems like if it's the figure that the state, it's the metric that the state is using, that should be on here too.
Well,
Not
they
just,
haven't adopted it yet. This is still.
well,
public area.
but it seems like this comes up over and over again,
Yeah,
that,
so
you
like in
know.
our conservation plan, we took the state's goal and chose our own reduction of it based on what we were already using.
Right.
You know, for our stuff last year went over because of the drought that we
Right.
had, where this year I'm sure it'll be less.
Right.
You know, I think that in the future, Artie, help me if I say something totally stupid, that it's possible that the state can use these conservation goals as a little bit of a strong arm when you're going to get funding.
They already are.
Yeah.
If you do not, but that doesn't mean that you're not gonna get what you want. But they are, if you do not do a water conservation plan at this point in time, you are not eligible for money coming from the Division of Drinking Water.
I think, the conservation plan thing's been
Yeah,
in the books
yeah,
for
but
years.
Right.
that's
But
the
what I'm
kind
saying
of,
is that maybe someday they'll say your per capita use is 300 gallons, we're not gonna authorize you to get a new well until you fix that.
Right.
And you can
Right,
explain
that
it
is
all
where
the way
they're
you
going.
want, but.
and that is where they're going.
And it seems like without knowing, since this doesn't have Moabs and you know GWSSA's, it's a little hard to say if 216.7 is reasonable or not, honestly. Because without knowing what our current use is.
I could go upstairs and grab it.
that
I think it's
would be
reasonable.
really helpful because because they're saying based on 2015, it's 333. And if GWSSA's is currently at 240, that means Moab City's has to be quite a lot higher than 240.
Price and everything. There's not very many towns in this whole.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you.
Okay.
What areas,
They're only looking at municipal providers.
okay, and who's that?
That
Price?
would be Price.
Price.
And this Helper has, I'm assuming Helper does.
Maybe, who knows, yeah.
But if they're doing fracking, that takes a ton of water. If they're doing mining,
If they're not
that
doing
takes a ton of
municipal, it
water.
doesn't matter.
But it's not municipal, that would be, so the other thing that we have to remember at this point in time is that your secondary water system is included in this. If you didn't know that, they include your secondary water as something that you, as something that they're going to be looking at. So it's
Yeah, but
all,
it's
everything,
different.
it's different, so.
What they try to tease out and what I try to give them is the difference between agricultural users and lawn and garden users, which I have a good take on that. So that's not a hard thing to do. Is it included in that amount? No. But I just told you that 240.
Yeah, they're gonna include that.
But the majority of Hensley users that use a lot of water are all ag. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I
But yeah, I'm aware of that from the water use report because I fill out
Yeah.
3 water use reports, so.
So in North Salt Lake and all the Weaver Basin, and they will be using their secondary systems, and that will all be thrown in to the per capita day use. We should make a mental note here at this point in time that Moab Irrigation Company is not a municipal provider. So the water that's being delivered right now from Moab Irrigation is not being counted in we were to pressurize that system, it would become a different situation. So Rosemary.
Yep, I'll go grab
Can you grab, because
Yeah.
I think I'm uncomfortable commenting on this without knowing that number.
Okay, that number, that's fine. So my comments have actually had nothing to do with that number. My
Okay.
comments were.
In red, it asked though.
Have you read it? My comments were on the end game of this whole 9 yards. And that is, at some point in time, the state needs to develop policy goals on whether we're going to leave any buffer for drought. Okay, and that at some point in time, we'll have all tightened our belts up enough that we can't tighten them anymore. And when is they gonna start looking at that policy, and when is the end game on how much we can develop based just on conservation? And nobody from the state is mentioning that at this point in time, and I would like to bring that to their attention, that some of us are thinking that. Those are basically my only comments to them.
Well, and it does include that we believe we need this, so I think we should.
And we can change that if you want. We can change anything you want on this. I am not attached to this document. I threw something out there hoping we could send them some comment on it at some point in time. If we can't comment on it, we just want to let it happen, I'm fine just letting it happen.
And what's the deadline on comment?
Gosh, I'd have to look it up, but it is before our next meeting.
Before our next meeting.
Yes.
So so basically what would have to happen process-wise is we would be providing this to Joel with a recommendation it be sent. We wouldn't be sending it, because Joel would be the one who would give the final.
So, yeah, however you like to.
Well, no, I'm just saying, that's the process, like, we don't send stuff.
Right.
It goes to either council or the city manager, if I remember correctly.
So does anybody know that woman who's the famous water person from Las Vegas had the big concept that it's, oh, okay, that it's shared pain or something like that? I mean, my question would be, if it's the whole state of Utah is enduring the same amount of discomfort because of, conservation.
They actually did that. If you look at this graph, instead of saying everybody's gonna be at 121,
Yeah.
they're cutting everybody by 20%.
Oh, okay. So it's going to be fair, even though it hurts.
To some extent, it's gonna be fair with what hurts, yes. That's a good question, Denver. We have 14 days. The public comment period was open until September 25th, 2019.
So Arnie, is this your document or is this really
I
mine?
missed that too.
Okay, so if I wanted to make comments, and I'd be pleased to do it, I've already made a scan through this and I do have some comments. Would I return them to you or to chair? Or
Well, the thing we need to decide is, are we as a group going to send this to Joel for consideration to send his comment? And we haven't decided that yet.
Okay, so,
Okay.
sorry. So, in 2001, we were at 281, and 2018, we were down to 134.
That's pretty much the same as so this is the per capita residence. So is that the per capita, is that the same number as this, is what I'm asking?
It's not, because it's just residential use. It doesn't include commercial.
Does this not include commercial? Because that's what we need. It needs to include all water use divided by.
Total use in acre feet, I'll have to go back upstairs. Annual residential.
Those are the numbers
It might be worth mentioning, I mean, just a thought, if the places there are very few municipalities, and Moab is the largest one, I'm assuming.
Price is probably bigger.
Here, you can,
And Price has more going on with different kinds of use, I think, than Moab does. Yeah. Yeah.
Higher water use or higher number of people?
And they might have higher water use because there's more mining going on there, there's more other
But are they
things.
using municipal water for mining?
That I do not know. That I
That
do
is
not.
not included
Yeah.
in there. They have wells and it doesn't
Right.
count. I guess what I'm saying is it might be worth mentioning to say, hey, state,
Yes.
the biggest city that has, or the second largest city, let's call it, we got Price, whoever else is down in San Juan,
Blanding's bigger.
per capita, we have more tourists per capita. Did you figure that into your calculations, that when you came up with this number, because,
And I understand what you're saying, but I think they would come back with us as the 333 gallons per day that is our starting point, and they're including that. So
Okay.
instead of being Salt Lake City, where they're starting at 200 or whatever it is, and making them come down to 181, they're telling us that, okay, we're just gonna ask you to cut 20% of what you're doing right now. We realize we're not going at an individual per capita.
You need to go,
day.
John.
It's
3:30.
We're going after a percentage decrease.
right, the 333, where did you get it?
That's on this. That's what they have.
Right, but
What's the origin of that? Where did they get it?
They went out and took,
I get that, but what she's saying, I think, is if that's not just us, we can't only control this much of that. We can't control that
so
333.
it would be for our area, they took the numbers from Price, and any municipal provider, okay, took the number, the area that they serve, the number of,
Right.
how many people live in the area that they serve, and divided it. They just do it straight math,
Okay.
okay?
So you're saying they didn't do it by city, they did a full
A lump.
calculation of total water divided by total number of people, period.
No, they did it by municipal, by municipal provider, and they probably took all of them and averaged them together, okay, for that region.
Where's Moab
Right,
on that,
and,
on that average?
and that raises for me the exact same thing that the
Okay,
conservation,
putting undue burden
yes.
on our area because
Correct.
we have so much commercial compared to so few people,
Right.
where it's not diluted like it is in a larger city.
Like it's in a larger city.
And this reminds me as well of the problem with the conservation district zones where you're mixing extremely different locations with extremely different pressures altogether.
Do you want to comment that the goals of this region are difficult because Grand County we can put that comment in there.
Well,
That's a
San
good
Juan,
point.
yeah, San Juan, Grand, Emery, and Carbon are all very different. Lumping them all
Very
together,
different And very different economies.
yes.
And we should comment on that.
Utah.
Right, and they're just assuming we're all the same, and we're not.
And we're not, we can say that if you'd like to. That's a great comment. I appreciate that. I think that ought to
'Cause
be included in the comment.
I think in some ways that means we don't even need to deal with what the actual number is, since we don't know it offhand, for many reasons, not just because of just not knowing it. Because even if Moab and GWSSA is already well below the 333, well, we can't do any better than that. And we're basically penalized for other places that might be using significantly more per person.
Not only that, but you're taking a regional approach where if prices people, so say that Moab and West are at the top,
Yep.
right? Of that per capita use, then they put that same 267 on Price and Blanding and
Right.
Monticello, who serve way less people with
Right.
almost zero commercial.
Right.
They're setting the bar pretty low
Yeah.
for that, for
So
them. I mean, I honestly think
that's
that
an
the
excellent
conservation
comment.
goal should be per municipality, but
Yeah,
I don't think the state should be putting their nose in it in the first place.
So the regional idea,
Totally different idea.
what I'm hearing is we like the regional concept, but the regions aren't small enough for our vast of an area, our
Yeah.
differences in demographics and economy.
Exactly.
That's the
Yes.
comment I would
Yes.
send.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's a comment
Yes.
we'd like to
The only
Yes.
comment, maybe.
Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
So if I have a question,
Yes, you can ask a question.
also know that isn't Moab kind of got a very large increase, projected increase in hotels and over the next, 3-5 years?
Some, yeah.
So,
It's already up there, though.
to your point though, it's going to continue to add stress, if you will, to your ability to meet those thresholds.
Except that hotels and nightly rentals are only 16% of our total use.
Yeah, but they're not getting any smaller.
No.
That's my point.
Yeah.
They're going to continue in the future of adding more and more pressure and challenges to meet the thresholds, because I think your argument is the rules for this region don't necessarily apply to
Right.
us.
Well, and also because our population is, just basing it on residents is not realistic because we grow to a town of 20,000 every weekend. So anyway, all right, what number did you find?
40,000 a night. But back to your point about the hotel.
40,000?
Yeah, tourist a night is what we're at.
Okay, but anyway, what's the number?
The number is from 2015 and it's 282, but part of that is the old wastewater treatment plant that was using a lot of water, which we're not using that much anymore. So we went from like, what was it, 2 million to
This?
20,000?
There's a million gallons a month.
So,
2 million.
so currently Moab is at you're saying currently, or as of 2015, Moab is at 282,
Right.
which they were saying the baseline for this area was 333 as of 2015. So Moab's already technically lower than it.
So Erica, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead, Dana.
I was just gonna say, they get that data from the annual water use
Right.
report that the water industry people have to submit to the state. So they have it up until 2018.
Okay.
So that could be still Moab's number. You only have 15, and they've got up to 2018, because it's due in March. So it's already-
Well, right, but I was just saying they were basing, this 215 is this number here, and that's their 3333.
And maybe that
Oh,
suggests,
the baseline is 215, okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
No, you're fine.
That's where I.
Yeah, so if the baseline is 333 and Moab at that baseline time was 282, we're already almost locally, so I think the comment really gets down to if they're going to make this region this large and this diverse in terms of population, in industry, et cetera, it's not, they should be judging each municipality on its own, not in that lump.
The other thing that they also aren't including with the wells and everything, look, if you go look on the internet of how many wells are in this valley
Yeah.
from the river all the way out to there are so many folks that aren't on our municipal water, or can save water, and have water wells that they use on their landscape. So there's even more, that conservation-wise, I think most people who own a well conserve basically due to the constrictions that they have with their physical well.
Right.
And the fact that they have to pay power company.
Right.
So, I'm not saying that people who have wells waste water, that's not what I'm saying, I'm just saying it's not counted.
Yeah.
I believe there's a much different number in the water conservation plan than the number that you're suggesting.
She's got it.
That's what I got, the water conservation plan. Where are you at?
Where is it? What table?
I was on page 15, table 7.
I'm on page 15, table 10. Table
What
7.
number do you have?
Table seven has the per capita dwelling plus commercial, about 394. That would be for 2011 to 2013 only.
At some point, I have a question for her.
So that includes winter overflow. If you take out
Yeah.
winter overflow, it's 313.
Right, but
Yeah.
the state doesn't look at taking out the winter overflow.
Right.
Because they're taking it from the report that we
Yeah.
give them, and
Yeah.
it counts over for two.
Which gives one more reason to give it to you, or sell it to you.
The overflow is considered lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so whether we lose it in a pipe or you lose it through the spring,
Right.
it's lost forever, so.
Okay, so,
We
go ahead.
need to comment that the regions that, we agree that the regional idea, however, your regions are too large for our area, like I stated, because our economics and demographics in Grand County are much different from the surrounding counties.
and
That's a
honestly,
fine comment.
that applies to other parts of
And
this.
I would throw in,
That's fine, I can do that. We
Okay.
can do
40,000, 260, it was 267% of the population, right? Are,
I'm not sure I need to tell them
Rentals.
anything. I'm not sure I need to tell them that we have X amount of people here.
No, I think we keep it I think these details don't matter. I think what it comes down to is just, it not only applies to our region, but we really notice it in our region because there's so much diversity in the data you're basically lumping.
I can add that comment to this letter, okay? Any other comments on this letter?
Yes, Arnie, could you make this a shared document as well, enjoy?
Yep.
Because I would like to contribute to this as well. And Dana, Gar, if I may, I got one question for each of these two. Eric, easy. Since the new wastewater treatment plant has gone into service and the old one, the water hog is gone, have you guys noticed a drop in the typical monthly total water usage for the city then?
We don't look at that on a monthly, weekly, basis. Every year, maybe, that's about it.
Okay.
That's something we follow. You'd have to talk to Eli.
Or the wastewater treatment plant.
So you haven't looked yet, basically?
They,
that's
the
right.
city charges for the water to the wastewater treatment, so all you'd have to do is go down to the treasurer's office and find out what the billing is, because it's billed.
Because you guys meter it, so you just need to.
Well, I know they metered, so I think the answer is a year hasn't gone by and you don't know yet, you just haven't looked at the numbers. I mean, I would expect that it's gone down, I sure hope so. I mean, it's,
Yeah, the water use has gone down, the energy use has gone up.
okay, that's great. And Dana, question for you, I thought you guys passed some months ago a tiered water rate charge, water use change. Has that gone into effect? How'd that work out?
I've noticed it. The nursery uses a lot.
So, the water rate went into effect on August 1st.
Okay,
It was the result of a water rate study that was performed by a company in conjunction with, in other words, it was provided for free as a service to our loan and grant with USDA, our rural development, basically to make sure we were in good enough financial shape to pay $5 million back. So they were acting in their best interest. But we had this great study done, and the study, a lot of it, the bulk of that study has to do with asset replacement and repair. It is all about saving enough money for a rainy day, having a threshold of where WISA would borrow money or where we would pay cash.
Or a dry day.
Right. So for example, we can save enough money to buy a truck, but we can't save enough money to, increase something or drill a well. We're gonna have to get money to do something like that. So we have set up thresholds. And what it turns out is that we're not saving quite as much money as we should, in their recommendation. And in order to, I don't want to speak for the board at all, but this is the general gist of what went down at the couple of public hearings we had. One is that people who are on a fixed income, who do not use a lot of water, people who don't do outside, who, those kind of things, we didn't want the base rate increase to be too much. So it went from I'm just talking strictly residential, $19.50 to $21.75 a month. The first 6,000 gallons of water are still 60 cents a piece. So we did not have an increase in the sewer rate for residences. However, I'll cut to the chase because I see you looking at the clock.
Well, we just, yeah.
I know, you got something to do, and so do I. Essentially, the tier, uppermost tier, which is 50,000 gallons and above, it went from $2 a thousand, which it was. It is now $3 a thousand. January 1st, it is $4 a thousand gallons, and January of 2021, it will be $5 a thousand, and that's where we're capping it off for now. We also raised our hydrant water rate out of the, where the guys come and fill up the trucks for dust control and stuff. It's now $10 a thousand gallons. So all in, our board believes that not using the water is the best way to save it. So, the conservation thing is big. Not only that, but the less water you pump, the less your equipment wears out, the less tanks and stuff you have to have.
For your power bill.
The less improvements to the diameter pipe that you have, and that's pretty much where.
What's your truck pumping rate again?
$10.
1,000.
1,000.
I think yours is 775.
So you better raise it so that they don't all just come to the city.
Well, actually, it's one of our, it's a really high user, it's one of our highest users, and it's a shame to be using culinary water for that. So, yeah, I'm all for raising that one.
Last year, of course, we used culinary all year long. This year, we're using irrigation while we can, and we'll switch to culinary after the irrigation shut off. But, since we got over our water right, there you go, Arnie.
Okay.
But
So-
for this comment letter, at this point in time, I'm wondering whether anybody has any real heartburn with the statements in there that there's an end game.
find it. I'm getting there.
Good.
I think I'm okay with that. I don't know what other people think.
We can wordsmith it, but I'm just kind of wondering about the actual concept and the policy.
I didn't get a packet, so I haven't read it, Arnie, sorry.
The policy implications about that there's an end game to how much we can conserve and. We can wordsmith it, I'm more concerned about the policy implications.
Well, we're gonna have to move some of these agenda items to another meeting unless we wanna stay here till 5 PM.
No, I don't,
Just saying.
Do you guys mind if I leave?
I won't say what I was gonna say, but.
So Dana, the conclusion of my question then, I think I heard you say, is tiered progressive water rates are effective at reducing use.
They don't know yet. Yeah, that's a no, yeah.
And we've always had a tiered water rate, always.
Yep.
At least as far back as the county conservation.
Yep.
And the state has always recommended a tiered water structure. And I think they call it a conservation-oriented water rate. Some folks wish it was even higher. But, you know, it's.
I think what that sentence that Arnie's saying there is we realize.
If we could focus on
policy
this, that would be
items.
great, sorry.
I mean, I think they ought to be thinking that already. And I think for sure we ought to put it in there. I mean, there is an end game there. We can only get so big. There's only so much water. Surely they've got to be thinking about,
Yep,
I mean, I think that's obvious. Maybe I don't get it, but it seems to me like,
yeah, I don't have, so Denver doesn't have an issue with it. Arnie,
No.
You're not Arnie,
Arnie.
Jeremy.
Arnie
As
doesn't.
it stands at this point in time, we're not scratching any entire paragraphs. I will add a paragraph as per your request that our reach is different, and I will see up to Joey, and then we will see if we can get it out of here in, it's gotta be to them by the 25th, so.
And I would just encourage that it's not just that our region's different, but that all the regions are likely, we reflect what's probably true in all of the rural areas.
Okay, that sounds great. We can move.
Okay, so are we good on this?
Yes.
So do we need to, because this will need to be submitted prior to September 25th, which is prior to our next meeting, I think we probably do need a motion to recommend that Arnie's writing this and it's getting sent to Joel with a recommendation to,
Yes, I can recommend, I don't want to make an, I'll make a motion
okay,
that I rewrite this with
with comments, yep.
comments from the board at this point in time. It will be, and then be distributed once again to the board with any more comments and wordsmithing that they would like. And then we will deliver it to Cara with those comments, and she can forward it on to Joel because she's the
Okay.
chair.
Okay,
And I'm responsible for getting it to you.
okay,
Is that fair enough?
yep, and I leave town on the 24th, so I need it before, well, we're gonna need it before, we need it by the 9th, but by the 18th anyway.
It would be
Okay,
by the 18th anyways.
got it.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? All right, so we have 10 minutes left and 5 agenda items. There's one, the peer review of Kencomb Phase 1 and 2 report that we should just, we'll push that to the next agenda after we've had the meeting with Kencomb. The Moab City's water conservation public outreach update, does that need to
I
be?
have one comment on that.
Okay,
My comment is that we're changing seasons at this point in time, and I would encourage this conservation outreach, public outreach, to throw out some messages out there, whether they're PCSAs or whatever, that they can start, people with time watering systems can start watering less.
and that's almost true. It's not quite true yet, but it's almost, because it's been a weird year.
It's been a weird year, but.
I mean, we still are watering at the nursery, same as we do in summer, which we're just, yeah. In the next month, it'll be,
That people start considering. Either way, I would like the PSA, because one of our biggest drains that we've determined is that people don't
Right, they don't back off.
They don't back off until they go to shut it off.
Right, so maybe
Okay.
that's something you and I can talk to Lisa about in the
Okay.
next couple of weeks.
And I just have a 3-second comment. So on September 29th, we're giving away water conservation kits at the Grand Center from 11 to 1:30, and at the library from 3 to 4, as part of Climate Week.
What are those?
So they're like aerators for your sinks and shower heads.
Okay. And I think.
Shower with a friend is.
I'm all for that.
That can take longer. So, Joey, since you're, this is your first time dealing with our chaotic meeting, let's have the Moab City's Water Conservation Public Outreach Update as a standing item on the agenda. And then if we don't have anything to say about it, we can just pass over it, but let's just have that on there. We're gonna shift peer review, item 4.6 is gonna get shifted to next month. We're also going to have item 4.8 still on the agenda for next month, because it's gonna have added information from the meeting with Ken Colm happening in a week. And then, does VCAP need to be on the agenda again?
I'm hoping that after I get the final report completed, that we look at some of their recommendations
Yep.
on a regular basis.
So let's make that a standing agenda item for the moment.
For the moment, and if we decide we don't want to talk
Got
about
it.
it, we'll do that.
Okay, and we will not need to talk about this water conservation plan as far as we know, like what we just talked about, this thing again.
That's correct.
Okay, so that one will not be on next month's agenda. So the other 2 items that we have, or the 3 items we have not talked about yet, how time sensitive is the State of Utah DNR Watershed Coordinating Council draft legislation?
Not time sensitive at all.
So we just push that to the next agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so item 4.5 gets pushed to next month, and now we're back up to item 4.1 and 4.2, finally.
Chuck was supposed to bring us some information that he wanted.
We have, he did, and on your computer, you can see what all these comments mean. Most of what he commented on, honestly, was that we should be saying acre feet per year, as opposed to just acre feet, which, fine, let's do that, I don't have an issue with that. Nothing that I had a chance to see, I didn't get this till moments before walking in the door, but most of what I saw in here was pretty much not anything I had big heartburn on.
Right, I think there's like 1 or 2 things that I'll pull out, because, yeah, it's hard to see them on
I
there.
haven't had a chance to look
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
And even Mike had a huge hand in writing this
Yeah.
at this point in time. So can we put this on?
I was gonna say that, what I was gonna suggest was that maybe Rosemary, simple things that are the acre feet per year, saying City of Moab instead of Moab City. Just
Yeah.
get those done, and then cull it down to the 2 or 3 comments, and then instead of this little sticky note thing, if we
I'll
could
put
just.
it in a Word document.
Word document, that'd be
Yeah,
really
I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll do that and send it back out, yeah, because I started to do, but I had that
Yes.
same reaction as you did. A lot of it is just like,
So Rosemary, same deal here. Could you make that a shared document? We can all comment on that.
Well, I think that there's gonna be so little, we can handle it in the next meeting. I don't think we need to do that, because I think there's honestly gonna be like 3 things to talk
Yeah.
about, and I think they'd be good to talk about as a group.
As long as I can
Yeah.
get it a
Yes.
few days prior to
Yes.
this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I would hope if we can get the packet like a week before, that'd be awesome, if that's feasible.
I would appreciate having all the
Yep.
information for the package.
Yeah,
well in advance.
yeah, so this will be one of those things that Rosemary can get to you.
I didn't even know for sure what date the meeting was.
No,
So-
you're good, you did great. And it seems like, so this is an item that you're gonna wanna be pestering Rosemary for a couple weeks before the meeting. And then any of us, if we have something we're supposed to be making sure is part of the packet, we'll get it to you. And I think all of us should keep in mind to do that 2 weeks before the meeting, if at all possible, so that Joey has plenty of space.
With a reminder that nothing can be added
Right.
within 24 hours.
Right. Okay, whoops, so that is so we're gonna have, item 4.1 is gonna recur next month with Rosemary having done this for, making it easier to read so that we can all actually see the comments. So now, item 4.2, the last item we have, which is Manny LaSalle plan draft discussion and possible action. I don't have anything on that, does anyone?
I think that was a recommendation by Eve, but I don't remember.
We want close
Right.
attention to that. The most recent stuff I'd heard in the last mock meeting was that they were dealing with wilderness and something else that basically didn't, and wasn't applicable to water
Right.
conservation and drought mitigation.
Right, that was what I last recalled. You have something to say.
I think Eve and Oscar, you know.
Starting to go, yeah.
she's doing. So
Okay.
if you want to know about that, I will get you.
Okay, so should we
Great.
then have this on next month's agenda, inviting Oscar to the meeting? Is that,
That sounds good.
okay, so we're gonna move item 4.2 to the next agenda, inviting, and making sure to invite Oscar. And in the past, I think it was Eve who usually asked people on staff, hey, we've got a topic from you, if you can't be there, can you at least give us something for the packet? So if you don't mind picking up that would be awesome, if that's in your realm. So with that, we've put most of the last items on the agenda to the next meeting.
We conquered some.
True bureaucratic organization, yeah.
Well, the few of them, I mean, most of them, and we've got 4 minutes left, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn or some other
No,
discussion.
let's kick the can down the road.
I actually have a quick comment.
Yes.
So I did go through the VCAP and I have like
We're
a
almost
nice,
done, you guys. See if you can give us a sec.
so I went through the VCAP and I have a little summary sheet that I'll put together too and send out before the next meeting.
That would be great.
Kind of like Arnie's one on the USGS.
We need to actually comment on this to that.
Yeah, and I'll send you the comments. So I have some comments for them, but then I have a summary sort of for the public. Like it's the VCAP in plain English.
I think that would be great for us to have a sense.
Oh, yeah.
For us to have a sense of what the process was, I think that would be
Yeah.
great. So we can explain it. Yes.
The VCAP seems like, I mean, we talked about earlier, you know, giving some scientific estimates of climate effects on climate over time. I think, at a certain point, we're gonna have Ken Combs' work done, we're gonna have USGS, we'll have VCAPs. I think that's the time where we need to make a really good, clear presentation on what we're looking at for the next 50, 100 years or whatever as far as our water resources.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And it seems like that also will be useful to inform revising this.
Yeah, and
I mean, does that seem like something we should be using in the revision process for this, or not so much?
Oh, and iPhone does, it's got a note on it for me with all kinds of little sticky notes that I have absolutely no clue where it fits.
So, to some
I'll work
extent-
with you on that, Joey.
To some extent, I personally believe the water conservation plan update is a bureaucratic exercise
Okay.
that we do for the state of Utah, and I believe we should follow their outline
Okay.
point to point, okay? And if we feel at that point in time after it's done, that we want to add something different to it, something more robust than what we're giving them, I think we ought to do that, but it's a bureaucratic exercise.
Right, but what I was suggesting was that the VCAP information and the VCAP report could be used as a source of information to inform it as we revise it. Does that seem like that?
That seems reasonable, yeah.
And I think the VCAP's going to have a lot of information that it could inform the
That's-
code changes,
Right.
a lot of stuff about capital equipment even, infrastructure needs.
Right.
Because a lot of it is stormwater management and storage, wildfire, water storage.
All right. So we've now used up down to 1 minute. Anything else? Or two? We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
That was by Denver.
I will second.
All right. Away we go.
Rosemary, I think
All in
you guys
favor?
deserve a lot of credit. That
Thank
VCAP is just
you
going
all.
to
Sure,
right.
thank you,
I wish Ken
everybody.
Coleman could write as well as whoever wrote that did. That's so clear. You guys did a terrific job. You ought to get some credit for it.
Well, it's really-
Mike was on it, right?
Really cool. Yeah, Mike was there. It was San Juan and Grant County and the city. It's like one of the first times since I've lived here.
Anyway, I thought it was a really nice piece of work.
Yeah, and the other thing is,
Well, yeah.
inflammatory at all.
No, but I like it says, let's think about wildfires and drought.
Well, I will have to be at
Let's-
the nursery this weekend, so I really would rather be out.
Oh, that would be great, but I understand. Yeah, I'm excited to get out, and I'll swing by Friday midday. Does that work for you? Just come around back?
I'll have it at
It'll be
the-
obvious. They're all
I'll have
one.
it- They'll all be together, and I'll make sure you got it if I'm not around.
It's the grass plugs that you're giving?
Yeah, they're in book flats.
Yep,
So they're
uh-huh.
about like, you know.
I know,
And then the
yep.
other ones are number ones long, so,
They'll be obvious.
and I'll put them right next to a hose bib, so if you wanna
Just spray.
hose them down right before you go, you can do
Great,
that too.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yes.
I've been thinking, once we get the and all this kind of sorted out and find out Mike and Arnie and you really believe, okay, we're gonna condense. I have this thing that we don't have data. We're doing the best we can with the data we got, but we don't have enough data. Could I have permission to go talk to Chuck and say, Chuck, when we get all this together, we all agree, the engineers in the department, we need to follow you guys into this and figure out what kind of data do we need. If we had somebody that could get us a grant, if the NGOs would give us a grant, where would you put the water gauge? Where would you?
Hi, Dr. J, how are you?
I'm good.
I think we need to keep them in.
Well, they've already gotten it.
Yeah.
I'm going down to Austin tomorrow to see Ruth.
Oh, is she down there?
Yeah, she,
No idea she went back down there.
yeah, she only had like 3 credits to finish up her master's, and I was like, listen. You gotta suck it up and do it. I said, I know you're brilliant, and other people know, but if you're, that's what you're gonna be doing.
Yeah,
Some people are snobby, some people are really judgy about that, so.
that's great.
Yeah.
Is she planning on coming back this way, or do you not know?
Yeah, she's trying to, start up that art of the farm